It's a great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar as we mark the International Day of Education. This year's theme centers on empowering young people to advance inclusive and equitable quality education, a mission that primarily lies at the heart of all the work that FIP-AIM does. And each year, the AIM community honors this day by launching resources that drive the transformation of pharmacy education and science worldwide. And today continues that proud tradition. This year, we're excited to launch the AIM handbook on promoting relevant education for practice and science, a vital resource that is designed to ensure that our pharmacy graduates are fully prepared to meet the evolving demands of modern practice and scientific advancement. Over the next hour or so, you'll hear directly from some of the authors and contributors who have shaped this important publication as they share their insights on bridging the gap between education and the real world needs of our profession. My name is Desireh, and I manage the UNITWIN and Provision Program at FIP, and I'll be your facilitator today. Before we begin, I'd like to share just a few housekeeping announcements. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. If any of your colleagues are unable to attend today, they will be able to access the recording later. The recording will be available on our website at events.fip.org. You are welcome to ask at any time any questions that you may have using the question box that is provided on Zoom. We will have some time at the end to address as many questions as possible in our Q&A session. We also invite you to share your feedback with us at webinars@fip.org. And lastly, if you are not a member of FIP yet, we encourage you to become a member by visiting www.fip.org/membership_registration, and we would be delighted to have you join our global pharmacy community. We're also pleased to let you know that live translation captions are available on Zoom, and there are just 3 simple steps to enable them. Step 1 is turning on the captions by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Step 2, you can enable the translation toggle under Captions and Translation. And step 3, you can choose your preferred language under My Caption Language. Once you've selected your language, you'll be able to follow along easily with live translated captions throughout the event. And if at any point you face any technical issues, please reach out in the chat box and we will be happy to assist you. Now, to go through today's program, we have a packed session that is going to focus on some of the reflections from our contributors. But to begin with, we'll have opening remarks from the FIP-Ed Chair, John Pieper, as well as the FIP-AIM Chair, Lilian Azzopardi. And then we will have reflections from each of the 3 themes that are covered within this publication. And we'll have some presentations from Christine Mohammed, Professor Al-Shurbagy, and Professor Surat. Finally, we'll have our Q&A session at the end and some closing remarks by our FIP-AIM Chair. Regarding the learning objectives, we hope that by the end of this event, you will be able to explore innovative strategies and best practices from some of the academic institutions that we have in this publication. And secondly, we hope that you'll be able to examine key approaches when it comes to curriculum evolvement, delivery, and competency development. And lastly, we hope that you will be able to identify adaptable curricula suitable for pharmacy schools in low, middle, and high-income countries that ultimately enhance educational impact and improve health outcomes. To start us off, let me now welcome Professor John Pieper, who is President and Professor Emeritus at the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy in St. Louis, and also currently serves as the Chair for FIP Education. He's a fellow of multiple pharmacy associations, a global leader, and has previously served as the president of the University of Health and Sciences in Pharmacy in St. Louis from 2010 to 2021. Welcome, John. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Genuine. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you today. And as Genuine said, it's great to welcome you to this presentation that celebrates the FIP Academic Institutional Members, or AIM's, International Day of Education, which is technically this Saturday. And this is an annual event where FIP-AIM is able to present a handbook that has been selected with topics selected to be most relevant to pharmacy education. In this handbook, Co-Creating the Future, Promoting Relevant Education for Practice and Science, is a fantastic document that really calls for and brings attention to the need for curricular evolution in pharmacy education, updated competencies for future practice, and identify strategy for closing the gap between clinical learning and real-world practice. I found the information on future competencies in digital health and artificial intelligence, interprofessional education, and leadership innovation particularly relevant to pharmaceutical education today. We identified 20 internationally recognized educators and leaders to speak to this topic. This handbook, I think, represents, again, a significant achievement supporting the FIP-Ed vision of equitable access to transformational change in pharmaceutical education and training that advances pharmaceutical practice and science to improve global health and well-being. I would like to acknowledge and send my thanks to the many colleagues and collaborators within FIP-AIM and FIP-Ed who contributed to this really exciting handbook, with very special thanks to Professor Lilian Azzopardi and Dr. Genuine Desireh for their service as co-editors of this document. I look forward to your comments at the end of this session and hope you enjoy our program today. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much, John, for those remarks. It's now my pleasure to welcome Professor Lilian M. Azzopardi, who is Professor of Pharmacy and Head of Department at the University of Malta, Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. She chairs the faculty's doctoral committee and also serves as the FIP-AIM chair. Professor Azzopardi is a global academic leader and has led major developments in pharmacy education and proudly co-chaired the FIP Nanjing Statements Working Group. Over to you, Lilian.
Thank you, Genuine, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our colleagues. And as has already been mentioned, today we are celebrating the work that is done annually by the academic institutional membership within FIP on this International Day of Education commemoration. So in the next slide, I'd like to introduce the work that we are launching today, the handbook that is being launched today. AIM, the academic institutional membership within FIP-Ed in FIP, is the global community that represents the schools of pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences at the global level. And within this group, we actively look at tackling and addressing areas of concentration that are relevant to academic leaders as we are moving into changes, responsiveness to the needs that are required for the professional transformation and the evolvement of pharmacy education. And therefore, in 2025, last year, this area of concentration, the advisory committee, and here I'd like to also salute colleagues on the advisory committee who are in the audience today. The advisory committee, through a scientific discussion, an evidence-based discussion, identified the topic of brainstorming and looking at relevant education for practice of and science as an area of concentration that is needed and that could help all of us to reflect upon and share our experiences together, and as we address changes and quality aspects in our educational programs. So this is how we are here today. That over this past year, a working group consisting of 20 volunteers from different institutions across the globe, representing AIM members, we were meeting regularly, consistently through the year, and had a consistent approach to developing the handbook that we are very, very pleased to be able to present to you today. And a few reflections before we move into some snippets that my colleagues on this webinar will be sharing is related to why do we feel that this topic required this focus from AIM and from from the group, and what has been done to provide you with this handbook. The theme of the International Education Day for 2026 is co-creating. And I'm pleased to say that it was a privilege for me to facilitate this working group and to work with these 20 different colleagues who are also bringing in experience from other institutions. And we were co-creating this handbook. So the value of this handbook is that it spans many experiences as a co-creation of reflections that as an academic leader, we can all use and adapt in our schools. The issue of relevance, we were looking at reflecting and looking at what makes relevance for education, for practice in science, what makes what we're giving in the curriculum that is relevant to the future, not only to the contemporary needs of the profession, but to also prepare our graduates for the future needs of what is required from the professions, from the profession and the science input, as well as the expectations of society. And therefore, in this concept, when we were looking at addressing this relevance, we were engaged in identifying future needs and also at the same time maintaining that we also as educators and academic leaders have a social responsibility to ensure that the curriculum and the education experience is contributing to the expectations of society over the next few years. So in the next slide, we can see that the working group, the approach for the working group, the working group, when we were meeting, we designed an approach that identified key priorities to contribute to relevant pharmacy education. At the same time, reflecting on the current challenges to deliver those priorities. And we have also put in information about actions, examples that my colleagues have very aptly written up in the handbook, and they are represented in the handbook to describe actions that are being undertaken by some of us, how these have been delivered, and at the same time there are also reflections on weaknesses and how these actions can also be improved. So the advice is that, as always, these AIM handbooks, which we prepare and launch for the AIM community, serve as a tool that can give ideas and lead us to improve or evolve our practices, our approach. And I do hope we always are looking forward to feedback that comes back from our AIM community, so that these experiences are actually expanded, so that by having this handbook available and being used to champion and spearhead other approaches in our AIM membership. These can then come back to be shared in the membership through other webinars, through our newsletter, or during our different activities. So we do look forward to also have feedback on how this tool is being used. In my last slide, I would like to introduce how these key priorities that we identified, that flag, that contribute to signals of relevant pharmacy education have been classified. I mean, following the discussion that took place during the working group, we have come up with a three-pillar classification of these priorities. Theme 1, which we're referring to as Theme 1, it's curriculum. It refers to how the curriculum evolves and is delivered. Also aligns with supporting that we are making changes to support relevance. And examples within this theme, there are many different examples, but examples within this theme include integrating basic sciences, clinical sciences, industrial experiences in the curriculum, responding to healthcare needs, developing different types of placements, rotations, and experientials, and maintaining an interdisciplinary approach, which does not only look at the conventional approach to interdisciplinarity, but also expands to interdisciplinarity that looks at other professionals and colleagues and scientists that are nowadays involved in the appraisal of new medications, new drugs, as well as the clinical aspects. So that is Theme 1. I know that, yes. Now in Theme 2, the second theme is looking at future-ready competencies. We had a very long discussion on describing and identifying and describing and looking into these future-ready competencies, whilst over here we have the main examples that I'm highlighting that have been shared by our contributors. Aspects of digital health, how to provide these competencies in digital health, artificial intelligence, interprofessional collaboration. It's a competency that we've been hearing about it for quite some time, but in the handbook, I was very pleased to see that my colleagues shared very innovative experiences of interprofessional collaboration and development as a competency, and leadership and innovation. And the third theme is linked to curriculum strategies, how basically looking at how are we putting in these new aspects, and at the same time making sure that the graduates are job ready. That when we're doing these changes and these updates and looking at relevance, there is a tendency that we add on material leading to curriculum hoarding and literally putting in more material because this is a new thing coming up. This is a future-ready competency and we need to cover it. But at the same time, not noticing that overburdening our students, our graduates, may not be a successful curriculum strategy to prepare a job-ready graduate. And in the last theme 3, there are different examples of how to approach relevance and having a curriculum strategy that looks at providing job-ready graduates. So today in this webinar, my colleagues, the speakers on this webinar are going to provide some examples touching on some of these areas. It's not an extensive and a comprehensive overview, but I hope this is a good taste to lead you on to approach the handbook and pick on those areas that you already have experience on or that you would like to implement in your school, and we would be also very happy to follow on these experiences within the AIM community in activities coming up during the year. So with that, I'd like to pass on the floor back to Genuine so that we will follow some examples coming from these three different themes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilian, and thank you for that overview of the publication and the various themes that will be covered. Now, moving on to sort of the main part of our event today, we'd like to welcome some of the authors and contributors who will share their brief reflections on this topic and why it's important for educators. And our first reflection today is coming from Theme 1, which focused on curriculum evolution and delivery. And we have Professor Kristen Hughes, who is the Dean and Professor at the University of Alberta's Faculty of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. She researches HIV, sexually transmitted and blood-borne infections, and community pharmacy roles, and she co-edits the HIV HCV drug therapy guide app with over 80 peer-reviewed papers published, and a member of the chat network since 1998. I'd like to remind us, even as Professor Hughes comes to share her reflections, please feel free to share any questions that you may have in the Q&A box, and we will, hopefully we can touch on some of them and respond to them later. The floor is yours, Professor Hughes.
Great. Thank you very much, Genuine. And it's a pleasure to be here this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on your time zone. And it's also been a pleasure to be part of the working group. So I'm going to, as Genuine mentioned, share some of my reflections on the first theme of curriculum evolution and delivery. And I think it's really important to start with the why. So we'll start with the first slide. And this really came through discussions that we really need to think about shifting from not just content revision and sort of updates to more of a strategic transformation, which ensures that our curriculum is relevant, that we're developing the competencies that graduates need, and that it's responsive to emerging needs of the healthcare system. And so the overall goal is to graduate pharmacists that are competent, adaptable, globally competitive, and socially accountable. So the question is really how we do this. And it's really about alignment and thinking carefully about how we can align with the needs, and also thinking about the various drivers that are driving this change from more product-based models to more patient and system-centered learning. So I've just provided a couple of examples. I think some of our other speakers will be going into more details, but we certainly have things like antimicrobial resistance that are impacting the needs for future pharmacists, and also taking on more public health roles, emerging diseases. We have digital transformation, AI and artificial intelligence, and digital health is really rapidly progressing and impacting how we need to think about training our graduates for the future. And then we also have complex care needs and complex healthcare systems in many parts of the world. So thinking about how we need to evolve our curriculum to prepare graduates to work as part of interdisciplinary teams, and to be actively involved in problem solving to address the needs of these patients. Next slide. So that leads us to the how, and I think Lilian touched on this, and I think other speakers will also highlight is really the importance of integration and alignment and bridging that gap between theoretical instruction and societal expectations in order to meet national and global health priorities. So certainly we have scientific components to the curriculum and really helping students understand that deep biology, pathology, and pharmacology. The clinical integration is really helping learners apply that knowledge into clinical situations and translating it into patient care settings. And then we also have industrial components, biotechnology, medical devices, pharmaceutical sciences, and the ecosystem that our learners will be working in. And so really trying to center into what is that relevant education that can bring together those components. And a key action, I think, for all of us to take away is really how we can ensure there's dialogue among academics, healthcare providers, policymakers, and industries, and ways that we can collaborate and then keep those channels open to be able to focus on that relevant education. Next slide. So this leads into some examples, and there's a mention about curricular overload or curricular hoarding, and really the challenge I think all of us face is avoiding isolated disciplinary knowledge and burnout, and ways that we can again achieve that alignment and integration. So some of the examples that have been highlighted include system-based modules, so learning that's organized around body systems and disease states, and really having that sort of holistic organization of learning focused on those areas. We also have examples of longitudinal courses where these themes pop up throughout the curriculum. Examples might be communication or professionalism or ethics. And these allow students to build on competencies that they learn early on in the curriculum and apply to more complex scenarios as they progress. And there's also examples of capstone projects where students synthesize knowledge and be able to use things that they've learned in various parts of the curriculum to solve some of the practice challenges. So I'll just maybe share an example from our university at the University of Alberta in Canada, where we've organized our curriculum into 4 different streams. So the first stream is behavioral, social, administrative pharmacy, and evidence-based medicine, or BASE. We also have practice skills streams, pharmacotherapy stream, and pharmaceutical sciences. And each of those streams align and have courses in each of the first 3 years of our program. And so we achieve integration and alignment by horizontal and vertical alignment between the streams and within the streams to allow learners to continue to build complexity and add to their competency as they progress through the curriculum. And of course, experiential is also embedded in the curriculum as well. Next slide. So a key of really bridging that from theoretical to practice in the handbook is simulation-based education. And this is really critical to preparing our graduates for that future job readiness in a safe, non-judgmental environment. And there's a lot of different examples that contributors shared, communication-based stimulations, gamification is very popular, as well as other virtual platforms by My Dispense. And these really, again, just allow students to practice these opportunities and prepare them for the real world context and experiential learning. Next slide. So I'll just end, some of my panel members will be talking a little bit more about job-ready graduates, but another key theme is just how we can build experiential threaded throughout the curriculum, and not really wait till the end of the program to focus on more traditional training where students do theory first and then practice later. So different ways that we can embed and purposely build on those professional skills so that graduates are ready to practice to their full scope. So I think I'll end there and hand it over to the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Christine, for those reflections on your input as well as on theme 1. And now we will move to Professor Mohammed Kubas, who is an assistant professor of pharmacy practice at the Lebanese International University and is also a clinical pharmacy specialist at the University of Science and Technology Hospital in Yemen. He specializes in anticoagulation, antimicrobial stewardship, and clinical pharmacy in resource-limited settings. And he's established Yemen's first pharmacy managed warfarin clinic. Dr. Kubas will share his reflections on theme 1, which is on curriculum evolution and delivery. I'm not sure. Yeah, Dr. Kubas, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Junion, for inviting me and let me to participate in this events. Today, inshallah, I will talk about the theme one. Prof. Christine covers most important aspect of this aspects. So I try also to move quickly about these aspects and focus on some other aspects Prof. Christine doesn't talk about. Next. This is my outline for my presentation. I go through them quickly, inshallah. Next. Today, our pharmacists need to be adaptable and cooperative and practice ready. Depending on this, we need to build a curriculum that can help them to be graduated and be competent and social accountability. Next. For curriculum evaluation, I will explore some practical aspects through integration and alignment and experiential learning. This can prepare students for complex and real-world role. Next. To achieve this, we need actionable strategies, practical steps to in our teaching and design our teaching and program design. Next. For curriculum evaluation, it is not just content update, it is a strategical transformation. So we need to know about our current and what we would like to achieve. So depending on this, we can build our strategy to curriculum evolvement. Next. Our curriculum should be must align to institutional and national competency framework, global health priorities like antimicrobial resistance, and emerging technologies. Next. So this can help us to produce graduates who are competent, ethical, and socially accountable. Next. The integration of clinical and scientific and industrial dimension is the key strategy, as Prof. Christian said about that. A scientific foundation and clinical reasoning and industrial exposure. This lead to comprehensive preparedness. Next. Through exposure of the student to industrial integration, this will help the student to be readiness for evolving health ecosystem. Next. As a practical steps, first we need to have partnership with the local health system. Then after that we can make a site visit. Can real world also challenges we can be back up by the students. Next. Interdisciplinary curriculum model that we can work on, like system-based model. So we can make a comprehensive knowledge about the disease and different disciplines like anatomy, pharmacology, and therapeutics. So to have comprehensive knowledge about the disease. Next. And through the years will be across and develops re-evaluate these core competencies, so the student can be have strong or master these skills and knowledge. Next. Also, the students have a projects to have real problems in the health system and try to solve this problem. Next. As Prof. Christian said about what they have in their universities about the longitudinal streams about base and practical skills and pharmacotherapy and pharmaceutical science. So they have vertical and horizontal integration. So this approach that help the student to deliver collaborative patient-centered care in complex healthcare system. Next. Also, we need to our curriculum to be patient and system-centered learning, not a product-focused learning. Next. So this and also to urgent public health issues like antimicrobial stewardship should be included in the coursework. Next. Integration digital health literacy. So we need to be familiar with digital health, and our students should be familiar with this technology. Next. So we need to ask ourselves which emerging health challenges in our region should be more visible in our curriculum, and how we can include it in our curriculum. Next. In most curriculum, especially in the low-income countries, usually they delay the placement of hospital practice and industrial practice until the final year. So this may lead to a student unprepared for real practice. Next. So the best practice is to let the student to practice in the early years of study, so they can be more prepared for this for the real world practice when they graduated. Next. For example, Gulf Medical Universities, they applied the progressive experiential development track. Next. So we see in this figure that they applied the practical step from the first year. So at the end of when the student will be graduated, so be familiar with practical aspect and ready for practice. Next. Simulation also play a role to prepare our students, so and also create a safe space to our student to practice and develop their skills before they will be in the real patient contact. Next. Effective formats, as Prof. Christian described also, there are many different simulations that our student can also apply to improve their skills. Next. Also, interprofessional stimulation that will help the collaboration between different disciplines from healthcare, like nurse and medical students, and build teamwork and role clarity. Next. As we said, this will help the student to improve their skills before they will be in the real practice. Next. Adaptation for resource limited settings, usually they need to adapt according to available resources and technology, so they can use mobile learning, should also develop something relevant to their scenarios and problems. Like in Yemen, we have some problems with chewing gut and diseases related to this. So this is maybe will be one of the most important clinical scenarios, and especially for our community, and also try to use available resources like community pharmacists to be familiar with patient experience and how to contact with them, and patient counseling. Next. So we need to focus on essential public health and align with national priorities. As I said, like in Yemen, we have chewing gut habits. This is make a lot of disease, so they increase the cardiovascular disease and stroke. Next. What are the actions we need to apply in our faculties? Firstly, we need to audit our courses, and we ask ourselves where we can integrate clinical and scientific real-world context. Next. We can also pilot one interdisciplinary elements like a case that blend pharmacology and ethical and communication. Next. Then with our colleagues, we can try to design a simulation or placement. Next. After that, we can build structured student reflection, and we ask them about the feedback. Next. To curriculum renewal, we need to regular feedback from students, policymakers, stakeholders, also faculty development in active learning and simulation design, and alignment with frameworks with international communities like FIP. Next. Remember, small iterative change usually can lead to a big impact, so don't ignore any change in curriculum, even it is small. Next. So we need to ask ourselves, are our students practicing the future or just studying the past? By weaving together integration, relevance, and experience, we prepare pharmacists to lead, adapt, and serve. Your role is not just to teach content, it is to design learning ecosystem where competency growth through doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Professor Kubasen. I think you really say it correctly that the very small changes can create a lasting impact, and so that's an important call to action to our academic educators and leaders. Now we'll move to Professor Mohammed Al-Sharbagi, who is the Dean of the College of Pharmacy at Gulf Medical University in the United Arab Emirates, where he leads strategic vision and academic excellence. He has been affiliated with Cairo University's Faculty of Pharmacy for over 20 years and is an expert in educational technology, quality assurance, and researches neuropharmacology and metabolic disorders. Professor Al-Sharbagi will share his reflections on our second theme, which is future-ready competencies. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you, Genuine, and hello, everyone. It has been great being among the working group which helped develop the publication, and it is always great sharing some of the reflections related to theme 2 with you today. Starting with my first slide, the group were influenced by the fact that everybody knows now that there is a rapid change in the pharmacy practice due to the changes happening in the AI and the digital therapeutics. And our graduates need to be able to practice both effectively and ethically in this technologically rich environment. That said, it's fair to say that when we speak about digital transformation, it's not only about tools. We need a framework that needs to do 3 basic things. Needs to define, to integrate, and to assess the digital competences across the pharmacy curricula. That said, the supposition or the proposition that we are going to discuss or reflect on today is the establishment of the pharmacy digital competency framework. The framework is informed by the international benchmarks coming from the DCODE, which is the Digital Competency Framework for Medical Education. That one is basically based on 4 pillars, but has been adapted to match the pharmacy context, where we have 6 pillars in our proposed framework. Also, it has been informed by the FIP Development Goal 20 related to digital health, also affected or informed by the Health Education England Digital Capability Framework, and at last, it is also informed by the ASHP Digital Health Technology Toolkit. As you can see now on this slide, it is basically built around 6 pillars related to professionalism and ethics, communication and collaboration, service design and innovation, patient and population care, medicine informatics, and health data. Also, the framework has been informed by the lessons drawn from the actual implementation of the digital competency framework for health professional education applied at the Gulf Medical University, UAE, where I was part of the team involved in the implementation process. In the next slide, I'm moving from the definition of the competency framework to the integration of the framework. And as we all see, the very well-known and famous spiral mechanism for revisiting the different pillars or domains. So basically, the students are going to advance through the 4 domains of the framework adopted from the medical education domain from the England's framework, which is basically to start with the acquiring and then moving with using the technology, and then finally reaching the level of coaching it as well. The students or the basically the pharmacy students across the way will be revisiting the same domains at increasing complexity from the foundation level up to the leadership level. Now, once that has been integrated, I'm moving now in my next slide to the assessment of the digital competencies. So basically, the assessment toolkit in the detailed proposal is speaking about having the assessment run through different methodologies. So having the digital OSCEs as part of the assessment ways, where students have their OSCE stations basically built around the digital competencies, having some digital e-portfolios, and also having some capstone projects which are mainly built around digital tools that they can run through and be able to assess their digital competencies. Now, speaking about the sustainability of the implementation, 2 arms are in place. The first arm is the faculty development. So faculty has to be trained on EHRs, daily health, and they can be also engaged in short certification courses related to digital pedagogy. And the second arm relates to creating the digital governance. So having committees in place which are overseeing the process, implementing, making sure ethical context is being preserved, safety, interoperability. So these also are there to maintain the sustainability of the system. Having a quick look on the implementation proposed for the framework, it runs mainly through 6 steps, starting with the early adoption by the stakeholders, and then identifying the gaps, which is the gap analysis, and then training the faculty and upgrading the infrastructure so that it allows for the actual implementation, and then starting with an assessment design so that it can be integrated within the curriculum, then piloting that with a small group of courses. And once it is green to go, we move on with the final rollout and creating the annual reviews. Just referring here to the fact that the case was implemented at the Gulf Medical University, where we have created the digital competency framework for health professional education. That's more broad for the health professional disciplines, but not pharmacy related in specific. But we created the vertical themes. We have created the governance structures in place. So speaking about whether this can be implemented or not, the answer is yes. Hopefully, we are being able to create a pharmacy-related digital competency framework that can be adopted region-wide and maybe worldwide as well. With that, I conclude my reflection. Over to Desiree.
Thank you so much, Professor Azzopardi. I think that that is an excellent example on how Gulf Medical University has adopted this pharmacy digital competency framework. And I think it is one of the big questions that our academic leaders are asking themselves with all the hype around digital health and how it is going to impact practice. So it's great to hear. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, these are just snippets. If you want to read more on what our contributors put down comprehensively, please make sure you get a copy of the publication. Now to share our final reflections on the last theme, which is on curriculum strategies. We have Professor Christopher Surratt, who is the Dean of James L. Winkle College of Pharmacy at the University of Cincinnati, and he's held this position since 2022. He holds a PhD in chemistry from the University of Virginia and has conducted pioneering research on opioid receptors and dopamine receptors at the NIH, as well as at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine during his quite long 37-year career. Professor Surratt, the floor is yours to share your reflections on our last theme on curriculum strategies.
Thank you, Genuine. And I am honored to give a few of my ideas with the rest of this panel, and that I was allowed to be part of this handbook because I think it's important. You've heard a few things already about job-ready preparation for pharmacists, for the workplace. And if we could go to the next slide. I think before I launch into the bullet points here, let me set the table a little bit. First of all, when I say job ready, I don't mean right after graduation that our pharmacists can work somewhere. We have that taken care of. Our creditors, the elaborate system we have for rotations, and they start in the first professional year in the US and Canada, again, backed by the accreditation oversight. So of the 4 professional years, each of those years, our students are involved in some type of experiential rotation. They are getting job-ready experience, you could say. And a lot of our students work in addition to their required curricular demands, just to have a few spending dollars and to get a little more experience. And it's a socialization effort as well. When I say job ready, I'm referring to conversations I've had with employers. And this often happens for our graduate students, our master's and PhD students, where we talk to Procter & Gamble or some of the logical employers of our graduates, and they tell us what they need as far as what the student should be ready for. And increasingly, I will hear that, for example, for our research-oriented students, that the employer may spend a year training them for the actual job. And the employers would like, if possible, for us to tailor our curriculum so that the graduates have some of the skills they can hit the ground running for, that in the first day they can do productive work. There's also the issue of enrollment management. So in the US, there's something called an enrollment cliff, where the boomers and the Gen Xers, their kids have aged out of the traditional ages for attending pharmacy school. And so you're seeing a decrease in enrollment in US pharmacy schools, and there's some panic for some schools that don't have a plan B. And the reality is that you have to make the profession interesting to students. And students, they recognize that they could be in this profession for decades, especially since the lifespan is approaching, well, I mean, it's not as routine for people to live to be 100. And today's 25-year-old might live to 110, 120, who knows? And that means they may be working a lot of years. And that means they have to like that work and be versatile enough to shift to different types of careers as these careers and these types of jobs are created, whether it's through AI or some of the other mechanisms that we've talked about today. So those are two reasons why we need to probably upgrade the pharmacy curriculum and the pharmacy education so that our students are not only ready for that entry-level job, but, and this is really the theme of what I want to say today, that they're ready for the leadership roles and the middle management types of positions and everything so that they can have a career for decades, that they don't have to come back to school and retrain necessarily. Yes, there's continuing education, but we need to prepare them to the best of our abilities so that they're ready for the next job and the next job, and not just the first thing that all entry-level jobs entail. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit here. As I said, they're looking at my slides now. There are built-in experiential rotations at community pharmacies, hospital pharmacies, all U.S. accredited schools need to do this. This approximates what other programs, such as an engineering program or business school, might have in way of cooperative education or co-ops. You heard Dean Hughes allude to this at the end of her talk today. And co-op type of education, in fact, for my university, University of Cincinnati, is sort of its signature. It's one of the oldest co-op institutions in the United States. And there's a movement in my university to move the co-op approach and mindset to all of the colleges within this university. And I hope to convince you of some of the merits of that. So, as I said, PharmD students are working part-time, paying the bills. Sounds good. Like how can you can never get enough experience, but there's a downside to that. Employers can potentially exploit that. They can promise a student an inside track toward long-term employment, and we see this routinely for the community pharmacies. They may have 5, 6 of our students rotating or working part-time at the community pharmacy. Only one of them can have long-term potential. So the district managers, the site, the managers at the actual shops, at the stores, will say, one of you has a chance to go places here. Who's it going to be? And before you know, the students are pitted against each other. They're working longer and longer hours. They're getting away from their true purpose, which was to earn the PharmD degree because they're in a school of pharmacy, a college of pharmacy, and that is supposed to be their priority, not working for this community pharmacy, however many hours they can get out of them. The other issue is that the work expected of that PharmD student at these sites is usually menial. They're functioning as technicians more often than not. If they have a good mentor, if they're lucky enough that the manager for that store wants to see them develop as a pharmacist, then they'll learn things beyond the basics. But more often than not, they are punching the clock and they are doing the bare minimum needed, and the educational component really isn't there. So the point is that these rotations imperfectly reflect the true skills that the student needs to be job ready after graduation. We want them to be able to practice at the top of their license. We want them to be able to grow into leadership opportunities. We want them to be versatile so that 5 jobs down the road, and as you know, the turnover at a given position is quicker than it used to be. People don't spend their whole career at with 1 or 2 employers. They need that versatility. Could I have the next slide? Thanks. Well, in a traditional co-op type of education, so engineering, business, some of these schools, this is a situation where the student actually leaves college for a semester, maybe for a couple of stints like this, and work full time with an employer, generally someone in your community. In Greater Cincinnati, for example, there's Procter & Gamble, there's Unilever. There are a few employers in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky where our master's students, PhD students can work, and they do these types of co-ops. And the co-op experience is to train the student on the actual responsibilities that once they're given that job, they'll be ready to go on day one and they will be productive. And it won't take a year to train them. Something we already see routinely again with the other colleges, engineering, uh, business, and some of the other schools in my university. The idea is, can we apply something similar to the pharmacy experience? And can we expose the pharmacists in training to uh, administration and leadership um, uh, skills? Actually give them a taste of what leadership is. Maybe they're leading a team of pharmacy technicians, junior pharmacy students. Where obviously the employer doesn't have to indulge us and create educational opportunities. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. But I think the employers are also thinking we want these pharmacists in training, A, to get interested in us as an employer and see long-term potential, and B, we want to assess their acumen, how they think on their feet. Do they have the potential to be leaders or to branch into different areas? So the best way to assess that is to expose them to those different areas. So that might be pharmacoeconomics. It could be supply chain experience. It might be pharmacogenetics, based risk assessment. The possibilities are endless. But those are examples of things that typically a rotation student is not going to experience unless you go out of your way to make that part of the experience. So one example of what we do, and we're not particularly novel, I think, in this respect, but my university in the basement here in this building, we have a telehealth center that is sponsored by one of the more popular community pharmacists, Kroger Health. So Kroger underwrites this center. Our students in their first professional year, all these students rotate through that center and actually interact with patients in the greater Cincinnati area. And our students have opportunity to do more work with this center later in the curriculum if they so choose, but they are by no means forced to do this. It is entirely up to them. So the employer is then on campus. The employer is helping to shape our curriculum and is guiding in the education of our students right on campus to help turn out a more experienced pharmacist. And a pharmacist has been exposed to all the types of career possibilities 3 years down the road, 5 years, not just the first job that they have. So again, the idea is coupling these types of co-op experiences with on-campus training with corporate partners could create a pharmacy student that's more professionally mature upon graduating and up to speed on more aspects of working for future employers. And that's the bottom line where I'm concerned. We're not trying to cater to the employer, but we are trying to work with the employer, collaborate with their prospective employer, and at the same time arm our students to be fully functional and, again, the key word, versatile, adaptable, so that they are ready to shift on the fly to that new career opportunity. And it may mean changing employers, but whatever it is, they are then fully equipped to move through their career and practice at the top of their license. So thanks for your attention. That's really what I want to communicate today. I hope you'll look at the handbook because there's a lot more to this AIM than what I had to say today. This is just a snippet of what's in that AIM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Surratt. And I think that really puts a lot into perspective on how to get our pharmacy graduates actually job ready. Thank you to all our contributors, our speakers, for sharing these reflections. And now I'll kindly ask that they all come off camera. They come on camera, sorry, so that we can tackle some of the questions that we have been receiving from our guests today. And I want to start with a general question just to all our panelists today. And anyone who's ready can just go right ahead. But the question is, how can we better integrate the science and practice aspects of the degree so that students don't view them as separate entities, because many of them consider them as separate? I don't know if any of you have any insights on that.
I can maybe start, Genuine, and it's a really good question. And I think in our university, we've tried many different things. I spoke to the different streams and how we integrate vertically and horizontally, and used case studies, simulations, and trying to really contextualize the learning and make it more holistic. We're actually undergoing a curriculum review and revitalization as we speak. And so this has been really valuable to participate in this handbook. And one of the things that really piqued our interest looking at the literature is looking at something called whole task learning, where complex scenarios are presented to students, and they have to break it down and integrate and really build the different disciplinary knowledge that you need to solve those problems. So we're looking at those, and I think other schools use integration activities that are purposeful to try to bring together these concepts. But yeah, I think it is a challenge and something that we continually need to revisit and build off of what works in each of our contexts.
Thanks, Christine. Any other thoughts? Okay. I think now we can touch on some specific questions that were addressed to some of our speakers. So let me start with one question for Professor Kubas. You mentioned that you are meant to align the curriculum, but I'm interested in which moment is most suitable for this to happen, or which year of study. I hope that question makes sense.
Yes. For these questions, I think the alignment need also to be compatible with the local institution and national country. For the years when we can start this alignment, as I said in my presentation, and also Dr. Muhammad, the Dean of Medical Gulf College, in their examples, they're starting from early years. So the students start to visit the communities, visit the hospitals, also in the Albert. They started from the first year. So this is examples show that when you started from the beginning is better for the student.
Perfect. Thank you for that answer, and I hope that question is answered. Now to go to Professor Al-Shorbagy. You presented a very clear and well-structured overview of how digital competencies can be built, progressing from competency development to integration, use, and implementation. This person would be interested to hear what obstacles you see on the road to implementation and how applicable this approach is in lower income countries. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much. A very good question indeed. I'll try to answer briefly. So some of the key obstacles that are expected and that we have seen during the implementation is issues related to curriculum crowding. How will you challenge yourself by introducing competencies related to the digital themes without adding a couple of courses to your study plan? So you have to dig further to see where they can be mapped and added to current courses, or at least adding or replacing some of the current content that is there that is not needed. Also, the infrastructure and access, which is variable from one place to the other. And I guess also the placement sites or the practice site variability, or better say, the practice site digital maturity. And that's why when we start the implementation, we have to start with the digital ready sites so that we don't get the obstacles right in the beginning while we are probing the process. That's related to the first part, some of the obstacles. Now, whether this can be applied to the low income countries or not. So the pharmacy digital competency framework is transferable, but is resource sensitive. So basically, we have to build it around the current availabilities, current capabilities, start with the open source tools. Maybe in areas where there is no access to the EHR, do some cases which can mimic the situation of having EHRs. Maybe also start partnerships with NGOs or with other partners who can upgrade and upskill the digital capabilities of the institution. So this is how I think very quickly how low income setups can adopt and move forward with the application. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent response. Thank you, Professor Azzopardi. I think now we can address one question for Professor Surat. And the question is, being job ready is very important, but are placements alone sufficient to achieve this, considering that students are in real practice settings and are not allowed to perform tasks as professionals? Would it not be better to use more simulation in education, e.g. facilitated with the pharmacy game, that allows students to make mistakes and learn from them before their placements? I hope you got that.
I did, and it's an excellent question, excellent point. The actual work experience is useful, but not standing alone, such as the only type of training we like. Simulations are the way. I agree, but I don't think simulations, in the same vein, simulations alone don't necessarily approximate the workplace conditions, how you can think on your feet and adjust to the peccadillos of the employer. Every situation is somewhat unique. But I'm not trying to short sell the simulation approach. And in fact, if you look in our handbook, you'll see that Melody Ryan in our chapter talks a little bit about this. Simulation-based medical or pharmacy education, OSCEs, right? Objective structured clinical examinations. I mean, these have been employed for a long time. And she even refers to models in France and China as where there's more immersion, for first simulations and then more clinical immersion, with prospective employers. So I'm not trying to suggest that I have the simple solution to this. I do think wherever one can employ simulations in your core curriculum, you should do that. I just don't think simulations alone fit the bill. There's no substitute for real world experience. And of course, that the quality of that is entirely up to the type of mentor you have, the quality of mentor. I'm just trying to brainstorm, I think, with my colleagues here and with the FIP community on how can we evolve the curriculum so that there is more real world experience. So there is a better synergy between the education and the actual job. And as I said before, trying to make sure that there's a level of versatility where our graduates can adapt to new environments, new work environments. Simulations only go so far, but it's a good point.
Yeah, thanks for that response, Professor Surat. We still have a few, I think 2 more questions. And this one is it's multiple questions, but I think I understand that the gist that the participant is trying to get to, and it involves I think workforce migration. I think we are in an era where our pharmacy graduates are moving from one country to another. And I think the question here is, why is there no harmonized pharmacy education curriculum, or one that is compatible and is integratable across nations, and what can be done for us to get to this point. I think this is general, but I will let whoever feels ready to answer that go ahead.
Maybe I can start off with some reflections here. I've seen the questions on the Q&A box. There is it's quite a valid point in terms of how can we have pharmacist mobility without having regulatory and legal hurdles that may come in place when you're moving pharmacists. I can share the experience that we have in Europe, where to allow mobility and transfer of a license from one European country in the European Union to another European country in the European Union, there is it's a directive, it's a legal framework in the EU, where all pharmacy schools in European Union countries need to actually stick with that directive, which outlines the competencies and the core elements that need to be included in the program, not only in terms of theory, but also in the way of how practice is included in education. And this allows then that a graduate from Malta, for example, who is licensed in Malta, can shift to another country, to another EU country without the legal challenges. Reflecting from that experience, because of course I come from Malta and we work in the European Union, and reflecting from that experience, there is still, I always like to say that we are homogenized, we are similar in the directive, but we are also very diverse. So whatever we should try to attempt to do at a global level is that while streamlining the competencies that one would like to achieve, then it's very important then to allow the diversity, because the school and the nation is responsible and accountable, of course, to deliver pharmacist workforce for that national setup. So I think that's one philosophical aspect. At the same time, within FIP, there are, the handbook that we're presenting today is one example of handbooks and tools that are offered to support this diversified but unified progress in pharmacy education. And maybe here I'd like to call in that there are many other useful resources in pharmacy education that were developed by FIP-AIM and AIM and FIP in general. Especially, I'd like to call in the nudging statements, which have been recently updated and which provide a roadmap of aspects that we all should be aspiring to have in our programs. And this should help in this global exercise of unifying where we would like to go. Thank you for the question, actually, because I think it's highly relevant.
Yeah, thank you for that response.
Genuine, can I respond to this thing about the US
Absolutely.
and the difficulty in licensing graduates from foreign countries? I think
Yes.
that the US perspective has traditionally been, unlike medical education, which is relatively consistent globally, pharmacy education competencies differ pretty widely across the world. And a unique feature of the US is that the license to practice is granted state by state. And there are even some relative differences among the 50 states in the US. But they ascribe to a national board exam at the conclusion of graduation to, at a minimum, sit for or to be considered for licensure in the US. Some states have some unique differentiating features. And so the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, which the 50 states who license pharmacists belong to, set up some minimal standards. And not all countries meet those minimal standards that are set forth by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. And again, there's a recognition, I think, both within FIP and in the US, that there's some variability among pharmacy education globally in terms of length of time, areas of study, competencies expected, competencies achieved. Now, I think that the gap is narrowing globally, which I think is a good thing. And I think that documents like the FIP Global Competency Framework has gone a long ways in, I think, standardizing expectations and competencies globally. But I think that in the US, there has been a requirement to demonstrate achievement of competencies, an evaluation of the curriculum that the student has undergone, the requirement to take a foreign pharmacy equivalency exam, and passing that before an individual would be eligible to take a state licensure examination. So it's been a pretty significant process. But I think and I think Lilian points out the success that's really happened in the EU and the Schengen countries about mobility and recognition. And I think, progress is being made globally around these things. There continue to be, as I said, some significant differences in pharmacy education globally. But I think there is a movement towards improving that mobility, but we still have a ways to go.
Thanks, John, for your thoughts and remarks on that. In the interest of time, I will just share one more question that we have. And the question is that there are always additional areas of focus that are expected to be added to the education of pharmacy students. Some were mentioned, e.g. the digital competencies, interprofessional education, global health, etc. So the list grows yearly. How can we do this while maintaining the science and clinical foundation of pharmacy education? Is postgraduate education needed to expand the education without stuffing the undergraduate program? So it's essentially a dense curriculum of sorts. Any thoughts from any of the panelists on this?
I can maybe start. It's a really good question, and one that we've talked about nationally in Canada, of thinking about education as more of a continuum. And so what does the first pharmacy professional degree look like? And then knowing that many learners may go on to do certificates, graduate training, or other training. But I think kind of it goes back to some of the points about really rethinking what are those foundational concepts and competencies that learners need to have to be able to practice and prepare them for graduation. So I think sometimes we think we need to teach everything about foundational concepts or even therapeutic areas, and it's just not possible. So really, I think contextualizing curriculum for each of our health environments and also the global needs, but rethinking maybe what are foundational concepts that are needed to be able to apply and build decision-making, leadership, and other competencies. Not easy.
Definitely not easy. Any other thoughts from the panelists? Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah, so for me, I'm thinking to handle this in two ways. The first of all is we are not adding to what's already there. We are trying to make what is available integrated with what needs to be added. So we look for spaces where we can do it differently in terms of the added components. That's one thing. It will work for some of the things and will not work for the others. The second way to do it is to stop thinking of graduation as something that happens once. I think the future college, the future university, the students will have to come back to regraduate and regraduate and regraduate for micro-credentials in order to upskill themselves. So as everybody talks about it, it will be a continuum. And there is no one curriculum that can fit all what happens. So basically, we have to adopt such a methodology one day.
Exactly. Thank you, Professor Azzopardi. Any final thoughts on this question about having a dense curriculum and how we can tackle that? If none, I think we can go back to our slides as we wrap up. And a big thank you to all our panelists and all our attendees for those very, very excellent questions. I will now bring it back to Lilian for some closing remarks, and then we can go through some closing messages. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Genuine. First of all, I'd like to thank the contributors to this webinar, Christine, Christopher, Mohammed, for your insights during this webinar, and of course, thank you all for your participation. I'd like to also thank John through the connection with FIP-AIM. The work that we do within AIM connects not only for the academic leadership, but also connects within the educational sphere and outlook that FIP would like to provide to pharmacy. Special thanks to Genuine, not only for his contribution today and for being the co-editor together with myself for this handbook, but also for the support that he gives to AIM as we do all our activities. So I'd like to thank Genuine sincerely for all the contributions that we have for AIM. As we wrap up here, I think we are all leaving this webinar enlightened with some reflections specifically on curriculum alignment. We've heard system-based modules. We've heard the longitudinal threads to try to overcome these barriers that students always see between the science, the practice, the industry, and therefore trying to look at strategies that provide more alignment and cohesion in these aspects. I've also heard many times the reference to experiential learning, placements, and we've also had a very good discussion that one aspect is to include different ones and as many opportunities as possible and not to leave them towards the end of the program. And I also was very, very pleased and excited by the questions that came up in the question and answer in the Q&A session, particularly with other aspects and other topics that within AIM together as a community we can be looking at to work on, including the aspect of curriculum overload, hoarding, and stuffing. So I think that as we wrap up the session, we can all go reflect on our own curricula, engage with our stakeholders, the diversity, and consider new steps, new approaches that could harmonize, streamline, and provide greater impact with what we want to do and provide our graduates for a future-ready, globally responsive pharmacy profession. So I think those are useful reflections, at least that could help us in the next steps in our institutions. And with that, I think we can move to our next slide, where here you have the QR code for this handbook that we've been talking about, where, as we've mentioned earlier, you will be able to see more examples, more reflections than the one that we have presented today. And we also encourage you to use the handbook, apply it, and we look forward to activities where we can also brainstorm your feedback and your contributions. So if you scan this QR code for AIM members, it will take you to the full publication. Also, please stay tuned. We will shortly be announcing an invitation for representatives from AIM member schools to join us for the 2026 working group. So please keep in touch, look out for our email shots, and we look forward to embarking on a new topic, a new hot topic that is relevant for all of us with the concept of working in the working group and then providing a handbook for all the community. I will also leave you with an invitation. I look forward to see as many of you as possible in Montreal for the FIP World Congress, and within the FIP World Congress, AIM develops the Global Academic Leaders Forum, which happens on the Sunday morning. And the theme for this year is, for the Gulf Forum, is One Health, One Pharmacy, Relevant Education for Future-Ready Pharmacists. So it will take us even more further on the aspects and some aspects that we've touched today. And we also look forward to having you populate the roundtable discussions, the workshops, and the working groups that we have planned during this Global Academic Leaders Forum happening on the Sunday morning as we start off the FIP Congress in Montreal, Canada. So I look forward to seeing you and continue this chat there. Thank you. And I pass on to Janwid.
Thank you so much, Lilian. Just to share some more quick updates, is that this is just to inform our AIM members that the FIP Council approved a new eligibility criteria for AIM membership, and now all AIM members are required to complete a pre-admission and eligibility assessment form. The purpose of this form is to collect essential institutional information, as well as, more importantly, accreditation details, and is essentially aimed at strengthening quality and clarity among our academic institutional members. So this form should already have been shared with all our AIMs through the administrative contact that we have on file. However, if you haven't received this in your institution, please reach out to aim@fip.org, and we will support you with updating this information on our database. For all our future digital events, please go to events.fip.org and register for the events that pique your interest. Last but not least, again, we are welcoming you to Montreal for the 84th FIP World Congress of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. As you can see there, our GAF theme also aligned with the Congress theme on One Health, One Pharmacy, and we're looking to bridge science, practice, and education. The sub-themes are shown on this slide, and just to share some important dates, the 18th of March is the deadline for abstract submission. So if you'd like to present something at the Congress, please submit your abstract by then. The early registration fee deadline is also a very important deadline, which is the 3rd of June, where you can book your slot for the Congress at a special rate. And the second registration deadline will be the 12th of August. So please take note of this important date. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and thank you for being part of this very, very important International Day of Education event. I wish you all